Yes, opportunity is for women. My answer is to speak up, but know when. If you don't ask, the answer's always no. Take chances, take some risks, learn body language.
In this week's episode, we're talking all about using your voice. Yes, your voice. Do you ever struggle with knowing when to speak up at work when it matters? Want to know about a baller woman who took voice lessons in order to survive on Wall Street? In this week's episode, I sit down with customer experience legend Stacy Sherman, and she shares what it took for her to build a massively successful corporate career that's now given her the freedom to start her own business. And guess what? It has all to do with how she used her voice. We also talk about the women who've shaped Stacy and her advice for young women who want to follow in her footsteps.
Hello and welcome to Hello Moxie. This is so exciting because we are in beautiful Lambertville, New Jersey. We're on the road and I'm here with Stacy Sherman, who I met through the Heroic Public Speaking grad public speaking mastery course that we did together last year. And we're back. We're back because we're going to be recording speakers reels. And I'm so excited to have her on the show. She's such a light. And I just loved having her in the class. She was always just so full of great questions and energy. And it's an honor to have you. So thanks for being here with me, Stacey.
I did not pay her to say that.
And I think it's amazing that we're like in this beautiful Airbnb. We had no idea what the decor was going to be. And like Stacy is like totally matching. We're like,
walls.
You know, it's crazy. So the stars are aligned. So Stacy, what is lighting you up right now? I want to know, what are you like most excited about right now?
Well, 2 microphones, not just one, lights me up. I mean, I'm usually so energized by a microphone. And so being here, continuing the learning, the giving, the getting, that is so exciting to me. And I'm full of adrenaline just because of all of this. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, it's so fun. There's so much energy coming back to campus, right?
It feels like family.
It does. It's like coming home.
It really is. And kudos to Heroic for bringing us together. And I think that's an important lesson about community.
Yes.
There's so much we could just spend only a episode on community because it really keeps us in check and motivated and a little kick in the butt when you're feeling down. And
yeah, what do you think it is about like the Heroic culture, the way that they've built the program that has created and fostered such great community even after our class ended? Because everyone in our cohort still is just like, we're always checking in with each other and chatting and helping each other out. What do you think it is that they've done to cultivate that?
I think it's a two-way street. I think that they've delivered a great customer experience for us.
Yeah.
And I think we've embraced it.
Yeah.
And it takes both. And that's true in customer experience. If you're on the phone with a service agent, if they're giving you kindness and helpfulness, you have to receive it. Just as if they're not, you can't be so angry and take it out. They're just a human being. And so it goes back to the same thing. Heroic has intentionally designed an experience for us that allowed us to be in the moment, embrace it, learn and share. And it's the culture that we came into and sustained.
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot for, they've created a really safe place where people have been vulnerable.
Yes.
Like everyone in the class has been, felt safe to share very vulnerable topics. And anytime you're in an environment where you're vulnerable in that way, it just naturally builds connection. Like if you think about in companies too, like when people see their leaders being vulnerable, they feel safe to be vulnerable, and it creates this trust and this connection of this like bond of safety that you're like, in community with them. Yeah.
Yes, opportunity is for women. Women, I just came out of corporate for 30 years. I'll say 25 because I want to.
Wow, that's a big milestone.
I want to say younger. I want to sound younger.
You are so young, Stacy.
So 25, not 30. And that's the opportunity, is that women are not vulnerable. It is not safe psychologically to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
What do you think needs to change?
Culture, men embracing women to be who they are, and women supporting each other, because there's such a fight to get to the top, and there's so little room in companies, even though in my head, there's so much room for all of us.
Yeah.
But the reality is there's so little room at that big boys table. And so women are
fighting each other.
I hate to say this out loud, but I will. And that is, of all my years, I only had a small number of great female bosses and many good male bosses. And that's because many of the women are just on guard, and we don't know how to be because of the environment we're put in. Yeah. And that's got to turn around, because we need the women to support women, and we need the men to support women, and one day get to leaders, not male leaders, female leaders.
Right.
Leaders.
That's such an interesting insight. So my background is I've never worked in corporate. Never. My whole career, I worked for small businesses. And so your perspective, I think, is really interesting. That whole, almost like this fighting to get to the top, and women feeling like they're not really supporting each other in that way, which is really, have you noticed it shift at all the years that you've been in corporate? Has it been getting better?
It depends on the company. So I've been at the last company I was at, had many women. It was a breath of fresh air, and at the top, and I was at the top.
Yeah.
Other companies, no. But then again, it's not just a company. There's so many departments in companies that they almost feel like a little entrepreneurial business line within a big company. So it depends where you sit. A company's just, a big building with a logo, but it's the people and the politics and the processes within each area.
And so from what you've seen and experienced, like, what's one piece of advice you'd give to a woman who is really wanting to follow your career trajectory and move up in corporate and move up into an executive position? What's one thing you would advise to help them avoid some of those pitfalls that you experienced with the women in leadership that you worked with?
My answer is to speak up, but know when.
Ooh, speak up, but know when. How do you know when?
You become very politically astute by listening, and then knowing where do you interject and ask the questions. But it's a test. It's trial and error. And then you see, are you received or you're not? And if you're not, you may be in the wrong room. If you are, it's a space that you can flourish.
Yeah. That takes a lot of, I think, experience to be able to navigate the nuance of knowing when to interject.
Emotional intelligence.
Yes. Have you had any experiences where you spoke up and it wasn't the right time?
Absolutely.
How did you know? And what did you do as a result?
I knew right away from body language. So it's the nonverbals. It tells you right away.
Yeah.
Then you get to hear what people are trying to articulate. They don't always do very well. So that's why I say body language tells a lot more quicker.
Yeah.
But again, I come from a mom who taught me that if you don't ask, the answer's always no.
Yep.
And therefore, I always lean in on asking. I'm starting at 0, so I can only gain.
Yeah.
And some places it worked really well. Other places, I think they don't always know what they want. So what happens is I'd be brought in as a change agent.
Yeah.
But then there'd be two sides of their mouths. They'd say, Stacy, slow down. You're way too fast. This side.
Stacy, way too fast? I'm shocked. From what I've known about her, she is a mover and a shaker. So.
But then the other side of the mouth is, we've got to make this change. Let's go. Let's go. So which Stacy do you want? Slow down? Let's go. And so I'd be dancing and it'd be very confusing. And so I danced a lot. At the same time, I want people to realize, and it's certainly women, but all human beings, the best thing I did when I was in corporate was I started side passion projects, meaning I started a blog. It was called Doing CX Right. CX is customer experience. And I had no idea why I was doing it. But I was working at Verizon when I was there, and I just felt this pull to write articles about great experiences and how do you do it right to make people come back, and loyalty and referrals and all the things I was doing, both in my customer experience role, but also as a marketer. And I had no idea if anyone would ever read my blog. Well, they did. And so my blog then turned into podcasting, and now it's turned into a book, and it's turned into courses at LinkedIn. And so my best advice is do something that you're pulled to before you know why, while you're even working on nights and weekends, and put in the time. And if you don't know what your passion is, my thought for you is, what do people come to you for? If they come to you for advice on divorce, being an only child, cooking, pickleball, my favorite, business startup, right? Whatever it is that they come to you for, lean into that.
That's such great advice. Yeah. I mean, and it's changed your career.
Absolutely changed my career, because now when I came out of corporate, I have a brand.
Yes.
Before, again, that I knew I'd ever be out of corporate or want this brand and what I'm doing with it.
Oh, that's lovely. And it's a beautiful brand.
Thank you.
Cool. That's such wonderful advice. Oh my gosh. So many good nuggets. Speak up, but know when to speak up. That's so wise. So, Stacy, I want to know, so we love to talk about the women in history who've inspired us. And I'd love to hear from you. Who is someone that's really inspired you and that you feel a connection to, that's helped you become the woman that you are today?
Well, I would say apples don't fall far from the tree. So it started with my grandma, who was a certified accountant at a time that women didn't work.
Yeah.
And my grandfather stayed home to let her he was an accountant, but he supported her going back to school and get her CPA. And so my grandmother taught my mom and her sisters, who also were change agents in accounting and then Wall Street. Wow. So my mom, I used to go to Wall Street with my mom, and I'd see there'd be like no women on the floor.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine, especially at that time when you were little.
Yeah. So I remember her, she would be taking voice lessons to sound like a man.
Wow.
To be on Wall Street on the floor, because it was no women.
Wow.
So mom showed me, which started with grandma, what resilience is about, that women have a place, even though it's going against gravity.
Yeah.
Go.
Wow. So she literally took voice lessons to sound more like a man. Was she the one that decided to do that, or did she get advice from someone else that she needed to do that?
There's different things she's done in her life that either was given to her as you can't. Yeah. And if you say you can't to my mom, you shut that down, and she just figures it out what she needs to do. And I think it's more of that. You don't tell my mom you can't.
I think you got that too.
I must have. I suppose. I might take longer to figure it out than my mom, but I get there.
So it's kind of a challenge. You want people to say you can't. She wanted that so that she would be like, I'm going to show you I can do it.
I think so, especially growing up in that time of life where now we do have more opportunities. We still have
Yeah.
long to go, but we are in positions and not expected to just be homemakers or nurses or teachers, which are fabulous careers.
Yeah.
We have additional options.
We have so many options. In fact, I think that's one of the challenges is that women have so many options now that they can feel overwhelmed. What do I do? What's the right path for me?
Mhm.
How would you recommend, like, how did you come to that knowledge and understanding for yourself of what you wanted to do? How did you know what was the right path for you?
Well, it's a fun story where it began.
Yeah.
I was in high school and I was in a advertising class. And at that time, there was no internet. So we were looking at magazines and newspapers and TV at subliminal advertising. And I fell in love with it. And it was all around the hidden meanings and marketing messages. And so I knew right then I'm going for a marketing degree. I ended up at American University in the marketing business school, and then later went for my MBA. And at that time, customer experience was not a dedicated field.
Yeah.
I fell into that when I was at one corporation and I was in marketing, and my boss threw me this ball and said, with marketing, you're going to own customer experience. And I said, what does that mean? He said, go figure that out. I said, now I hated him for it because I'm like, I need a little help here. I don't understand what you're expecting of me. And what is this CX thing? Well, sure enough, I figured it out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways where customer experience is positioned in marketing, as we talked a lot about, in new product development, where you're getting customer feedback before product launches to make sure that it's worth the investment and the time and resources. So feedback, that the iterative feedback to design products. And then I'd also work with salespeople to make sure that the front line were really delivering a great experience. And so I continued, and I had that fork in the road to say, do I want to continue marketing projects and initiatives and departments, or go spearhead customer experience? And customer experience and marketing sit in different org charts depending where I was, which to me need to blend.
Yeah, I agree. They're so interrelated. So what's so cool about that story is that your boss trusted you and said, go figure it out. And you totally rose to that moment.
I did. And now I figure everything out.
Yeah.
But at the moment, that time where I was younger and I was like, I need a little help. And when he said, no, go figure it out, I did struggle. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to help me? Like I hit a roadblock. I tried ABC, and these other teams didn't have the same goals as me. So I couldn't get them to embrace the feedback to make the changes. It just was this very siloed organization.
So what'd you do?
So in my mom's style, I wouldn't take no. And I'm knocking on every leader's door to say, we need to unify our goals. We need to be measured the same way. And eventually we were. And that's where it moved the needle. Because now when Stacy came with all these different feedback from the e-commerce site and the customer service and social media and all those different voices of the customer, I'd be able to go to these different teams and say, we've got to fix that. This is what they're saying. They're like, oh yeah, we'll make that priority now.
So you were like the aligner. You just aligned everyone with your Moxie and said, this is what we need to do together to make this work. How long did it take for that change to happen?
At least a year. At least. And we're talking about customer pain points.
Yeah.
But what happens is when other people have different metrics that they're measured by, their performance.
Yeah.
And if it's not shared.
So what were the shared metrics that you ended up getting everyone bought into?
So besides your typical revenue, hard dollars, there was Net Promoter Score. There was also effort score. So how easy or difficult is it for a customer to be able to check out on the website?
Yeah.
How easy or difficult is it to get help when
How
you
do you
need
measure
it.
that?
You literally ask, there's an effort score. So just like satisfaction, just like recommend, there's an effort score. One company, we measured purpose. So it was a very purpose-driven company. And we would ask, we declared what we, as a company, our purpose is to improve lives. And we would literally ask, how well
very cool.
are we delivering on that promise?
That is so cool. Now, one follow-up question I have to that is, these are like, how were you able to get buy-in from the people on your team who are very focused on the financial part of ROI of this? Because it's really difficult to show an ROI on asking about purpose.
Yeah.
And there are people that are just very, focused on that. So how did you get them to change their thinking about how these metrics were going to actually eventually lead to changes in the bottom line?
Oh, yeah. Well, it always starts at the top.
Yeah.
So I'd be knocking on the doors at the top and saying, listen, here's a program we need to go do. Here's why. Here's the data I have from other sources, Gartner, Forrester, etc. But here, give me a little budget, give me a little resources, and let's do a pilot program. And prove what I'm saying, because this is not Stacy's guess. Trust me, give me a little bit to show you within 3 months. And I would, and the team, and we would deliver on what we said we would do, and then measure the impact by the culture initiatives and everybody owning that experience that the customer felt and compared before and after.
So cool. Oh, I love it.
Pilot programs.
That's a beautiful way to do it, because it reduces some of the risk and you can actually show impact, and then they'll be willing to do it across the board.
But you do need an alignment at the top, because if they're struggling and battling their own non-unified metrics and goals and teams and beliefs and governance.
I think you highlight a really good point there about sometimes you have to lead up, like especially as women, it's important sometimes to, you don't need to be at the top dog position to be a leader. You're a leader wherever you're at in the company. And that's what's going to create a great customer experience is to show up and say, I'm a leader in my position wherever I'm at. And then other people, even people above you, will see that you're being a leader. So I think that's a really great example that is like leading. I don't know if you call it leading up, but like
managing up.
There you go. Managing up. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah.
And I think that when we talk about customer experience, people also don't realize that there's an internal customer.
Yeah.
So when you have different business lines of marketing, HR, legal, IT, they're serving their internal stakeholders. And so those, in a way, are customers who fuel the external customer.
So cool. I mean, your passion for customer experience is just incredible. I love it. What's the best customer experience you ever had?
Oh, gosh, I pay attention to it everywhere I go, every single day. I'd say a favorite is going to Trader Joe's, a fabulous grocery store. I don't know if it's everywhere, but it's a special place where you come in. And other grocery stores, if you ask a question, people will just say, yeah, it's over aisle 5, aisle 2. No, they walk you to the product that you're asking about. They'll open that bag of chips so you can taste it. More than that, I remember I was checking out, and the people at the register are so kind and asking you about your day and telling you recipes based on what you bought, so personalizing it. But more than that, it was pouring rain, and the cash register said, I have an umbrella if you need one. And I said, shoot, I do need one. I didn't bring one. Not only does she give me her umbrella, she walks me to the car.
Wow.
Holding the umbrella, and I put my stuff in. Now that's going up and beyond.
That is such care. That's really tremendous care. And I think it's becoming more and more important for brands to operate that way, because trust is becoming so hard for people to come by. everywhere we go. It's like people don't trust anything, especially with AI. But you can trust someone who's going to walk you to the car with the umbrella, you know, because they care about you, and care and trust go hand in hand. If you feel like someone's truly showing that they care about you, you trust them.
Yes. But she was empowered by leadership to be able to, she didn't have to ask.
Yeah.
Can I walk her to the car? No, she just did it.
Yeah. And I think that highlights a point, like in some organizations, and I've worked in organizations like this, there's a fear mindset where you're worried you're going to do the wrong thing because of the way the culture is, that there's this fear like, oh, can I do this? Because I don't know if it's right, or I'm going to get in trouble because it's against the rules. And if there's not this mindset of like what your boss told you, like go figure it out, right? Like there needs to be kind of this culture where people feel they're not being micromanaged, that they have the freedom to make those choices. And if they don't feel like they're safe to do those things, to have the leadership sometimes to speak up and say to their management team, hey, you know, this is what I'm seeing, you know, and I think, you know, this is what I'd recommend we change for change to happen, I think.
Yeah.
So,
and the reality is that mid to big companies put people in a box. You're in an org chart box.
Yeah.
And I recommend leaders allow some invisible lines and some leeway to be able to make an impact on people's lives and go up and beyond without having to always ask. Yes, you're going to have some guidelines for sure. You're not going to just give things away for free. But if you enable a customer service agent or salesperson or marketing or others to say, okay, customer's so irate, we didn't really do right by the customer, and liberty to be able to say, we are sorry, let me make it up to you. Give that leeway.
Yeah. Like have some guardrails, give them some guardrails so they know at least what's safe. So I think it comes back to clear communication. Like here are your guardrails. You're free to do whatever within this zone that needs to happen. Whether it's like, okay, if we need to give, you know, a credit of this amount, if this, like giving them the freedom to make those choices without having to go up the board.
Yes. Now, also, I would say the other word is consistency.
Ooh,
because I can't stand when I call the airlines and I get one answer that we can't help you. But then if I go onto the chat service, I get a different answer.
Yeah.
So training and consistency is important. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah. And I imagine that the larger the organization, the harder and harder and harder that is.
Yes.
What have you seen work really well to make that happen?
Yeah, I would say, again, it comes down to training and it's practicing. That is a great use case for AI, where there's simulation that you can use the AI to allow your frontline to speak to a pretend customer, but it feels real.
Yeah.
And then test the responses, see how they do, and compare that. Did they do the answer it correctly, comparing to other people? And so they can test before they get in front of a real customer.
That's so cool. Love that. So, man, there's so many other questions I have for you, but we like we can talk all about AI. Like, what do you think going forward? You just gave a really great use case for AI supporting the customer experience. Do you have any other examples of how AI can elevate the customer experience and what companies should be wary of when it comes to AI?
Yeah. So I would say in my book that's coming out next month, it is all around the customer journey and how important it is to literally design how customers learn, your clients learn, which is marketing, a big play there. Learn, buy, get, use, pay, and get help. And in each of those segments, people are talking about your company. It was so hard to buy. I got stuck in the checkout. Or my salesperson was such a obnoxious person. I'll never buy from them again, right? There's so much voice and chatter on every single moment of truth in that journey. And so collecting that information from surveys, from the website, from social media ratings and reviews, you bring that all together, and the AI will actually look at what are all the pain points. More than that, it's predictive. So if someone's saying, or many people are saying, legal, lawsuit, you need to know that.
Yeah.
It's blaring and you got some action fast. So AI is a great tool rather than reading one by one all the feedback.
Synthesizing it all.
Synthesize, prioritizing, aggregating it, and helping you with strategy.
Yes, so that you can stay on the strategy side.
Mm-hmm.
We always need humans leading that part.
Yeah, and then get with the right people to close the loop and execute, and then let customers know what you did because of it.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Well, Stacy, I would love to know what my final question for you is. We've talked a lot about speaking up. You talked about how your mom was one who just wasn't afraid to speak up. You clearly, and you gave advice about, speaking up and knowing when to interject. What advice would you give to women, younger women especially, who may be new in their careers, on what they can do to practice speaking up more?
Well, I have Gen Z, 2 young adults, and I would say for them to take chances, take some risks, learn body language.
Ooh, learn body language. Yeah.
Because it tells you those golden moments. If somebody is sitting here like this, all crossed, and their face expression might not be the right time. But if somebody you're talking to is relaxed and really engaged and open, it's a good indicator to take a chance and say what you're thinking.
Yes.
Engage in conversation. Just this is enough to say somebody's closed. They might not receive you.
Yeah. It's having that emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So important. I think that's just going to become so much more important. Those are the skills that people are going to need to have in the future, is that really strong awareness, social awareness of what's happening, and self-awareness too, so that you can regulate how you respond in situations when people may not be receptive to what you have to share.
Yeah. And for those who are parents or aunts or grandparents listening, just also realize what a role you have. Because I got it from my mom. Not even what she taught me, it's what she did in action. And that's what I've done for my kids.
Yes.
And so we pass it down to the next generation because they're watching us.
So true. Careful the things you say. Children will listen.
Oh, they hearing in the back of their heads.
Yes. I think that's such a wise point, is to start when your kids are young and to really be intentional about that.
Yes.
They do. They see everything you do. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been such a delight. Stacy, thank you for being on the show. And I just realized I forgot to even have you give an intro of who you are and what you do. So since I totally botched that in the beginning, we're going to let you tell our listeners who you are, what you do, and how they can get a hold of you.
Yes. Stacy Sherman. I own Doing CX Right Consultancy, and CX is customer experience. I'm a keynote speaker and advisor and author. And I really believe that experiences is what differentiates brands. And we all have the power to create experiences that make customers really love your brand, and your teams advocate, that make your competitors envious.
Love that. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your Moxie with us today.
Thank you. And if anybody wants to find me, it's doingcxright.com, and also a podcaster that you'll get to hear Nicole on my show.
Yes.
So check that out on all the places that you listen to podcasts.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Hello Moxie. I hope you felt that unbreakable thread connecting you to the women of the past, to the trailblazing pioneers of today. Their stories of audacity, resilience, and courage are a powerful reminder of what's possible for you when you choose to live with Moxie.